You may recall that Wizz Air confirmed it would be forced to keep aircraft grounded throughout 2025. However, now that is expected to continue until almost 2030. The carrier has stated that it simply doesn't expect pressures to ease until at least 4 to 5 years' time, bringing us closer to the 2029-2030 timeframe before the ongoing engine crisis is sorted. At least for Wizz Air, the engine crisis surrounds Pratt & Whitney's geared turbofan engine, or more simply referred to as GTFs, and affects the A320 family, a pivotal part of the airline's fleet makeup. Speaking at the Airline Economic Conference, the airline's chief executive officer said that the engine problems will persist considerably longer than first imagined. Due to the aforementioned engine issues, Wizz Air has confirmed that 40 planes will remain grounded until 2026. However, this will now likely continue for a longer duration, and that is really the core fundamental update for today's story. We knew they were to be affected across the next 2 years, but you probably got to say that Wizz Air weren't even expecting the problems to continue for so long. Several factors can cause groundings, such as an inability to fix engines with the required parts due to the ongoing supply chain shortages, but it can also stretch to maintenance delays. Look no further than Vietnam Airlines. They provided us with a perfect example of the difficulties they're facing on Rolls-Royce engines. They send a said engine in for maintenance and are quoted at, say, an 80 to 90-day period. All of a sudden, it's been 130 days, and the engine is not back in the hands of the airline, with not much clarity on when they will receive it back. As a result, we're talking 30 to 50 days of extra maintenance time that is not being communicated, completely throwing an airline's schedule out of the window and return to service plans. Wizz Air isn't the only airline facing a similar situation in Europe for Pratt & Whitney engines, however. Air Baltic has been broadly documented as a highly affected carrier who operate a fleet of only Airbus A220s. The problems do stretch further than Europe, right into the United States, for no airline has necessarily been spared, and while a lot of today's conversation surrounds Pratt & Whitney, as I briefly touched on over in Vietnam, it's Rolls-Royce related engines. But the severity of the issues at hand do vary from case to case. In some instances, airlines have been, say, able to draft aircraft in to cover the grounded units on a short-term wet lease. In other cases, some airlines may consider themselves to be rather fortunate in terms of the overall impact, which has been limited. However, others will feel the brunt of it. Making the transactions for the wet lease is also a challenge, given the uncertainties about when groundings will ease, when you can sign these aircraft on, and for how long too. Also, availability is an important factor worth considering. Wizz Air doesn't doubt that things are not slowly improving, and there are obviously ongoing efforts being made to try and stabilize supply chains. Unfortunately, the harsh reality is that these things are not being done quickly enough to make genuine improvements or inroads in the recovery. Wizz Air initially believed things would ease in 18 months to 2 years, and that was some time ago. We now know that forecasting has been wildly discarded and will not be met. Current forecasting shows that this issue will persist for the next 4 to 5 years. It is a staggering time frame that really shows what airlines are going to have to get used to. Furthermore, when you also consider that plane makers' delays in delivering new aircraft are a more common theme than ever, well, there will be more challenges in adequately meeting capacity. These problems, like I said, have become the new norm for our aviation industry, and airlines must find ways to juggle the difficulties to limit the financial and operational impacts under worst-case scenarios and long-term effects such as what Wizz Air is set to experience for almost another half-decade. Compensation agreements are crucial to sign in a bid for an airline to try and cope with the losses it is feeling. I'd love to hear your take on this subject down below in the comments. It is obviously not necessarily the most positive news. I hate bringing this to you, but it's really important. And to think that Wizz Air is in a situation where they don't think things are going to ease until nearly the turn of the next decade, well, it is quite crazy. Thanks again for watching, take care, and I'll see you tomorrow.